Okay, I'd like to call the board to order. And if you please stand and join me in the pledge. Casey, if you will lead us.
All right, put me on the hot seat right away. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have the consent agenda is approved minutes from May 19th, 2026, approved payroll and approved vouchers.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Next, we have the development standards and regulations update. Please, Commissioner Oakville.
Hey, good morning. Dang it. Okay. Yes, it's a big week for the DSR. Yesterday, it was put out, the uses table and the maps for review. There's also chapters 1 through 4, and chapter 7 will be coming shortly. Chapter 5 and 6 have to do with administrative rules and subdivision rules, and they are still being finalized. So they will be out as soon as they're available. But I'm hoping that the public will go online and take a look at what's there. The new map, you do have to provide the information of what area you are commenting on and whether you live there, work there, or what your reasoning is for commenting on that area. Please keep in mind that there are public meetings next week. On the 9th, we will be at the Cody Auditorium from 9 to 1, in Powell at the Fairgrounds from 5 to 8. On the 10th, we will be in Clark at the Rec Center from 9 to noon, and in Wapiti on the North Fork from 5 to 8. And on the 11th, we will be in Meeting from 9 to noon, and on the South Fork from 5 to 8. Please keep in mind that we would like everyone to comment in writing. We will certainly visit with you at these open houses to get your take, but we do want your concerns and things in writing so that the consultants and our staff can compile all of that information and not kind of relying on our memory from the conversations that we have. So please put any comments in writing that you have. If you have any concerns or questions, please contact our planning and zoning staff, and they will try to get answers to your questions as quick as we can. I don't think there's anything else.
Mr. Chair, I just want to add that we've requested this morning to have a link at our homepage, Park County's homepage, hopefully to make it a little easier to access these documents online prior to these meetings. So trying to be as transparent as possible.
Thank you.
Anything else on DSR? No? We're a little early, but we'll go ahead and open up for public comment on agenda or non-agenda items. So if you have a public comment, if you please come forward, state your name for the record and speak on the mic. Any public comments?
So everybody can hear it in the house.
Any other public comment? Go ahead, Lloyd.
Mr. Chair, I'm looking at our agenda with Forest Service coming up here with our annual meeting. I meant to mention something in our staff meeting earlier this morning, but for those that don't know, we Cade Powell with the BLM field director has retired. So we'll have a new director out there. It was supposed to have been decided possibly as quick as yesterday. I haven't followed up. But the interim was going to be a John something. I forgot his card, but so we're going to have new leadership at the BLM office as we move forward. So just heads up.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
I just want to also add, as Cade will be missed. He was very good working with us as a federal partner. So similar to Casey here. I don't want to blow smoke up too much. But it's been great to work with Cade over the last few years.
Right.
We're going to miss him.
No other public comment? Well, let's move forward with Casey. Next on our agenda, we have Casey McQuiston, District Ranger for Shoshone National Forest, and an update of the north zone of the Shoshone National Forest. Thanks, Casey.
Good morning. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to meet with you all. Just wanted to give you kind of some brief updates and potentially answer any
Should you
questions.
pull that mic a little bit? That way.
We good?
It'll move in.
Then
You could pull the mic towards you.
I'll get a hang of this one of
That's
these
great.
days.
Thank you.
Okay. So just want to give you a kind of a brief update where we're at, and then answer any questions you might have. I'll just get into the update. So one of the big things is you're all well aware of, recreation is probably one of the biggest programs, if not the biggest program on the forest. So for the North Zone this year, we have an operating budget of about $400,000. We were able to hire 5 seasonals and develop rec this year. So that was a big difference from last year where we had essentially none. So the plan is we're going to open all the campgrounds, open them as scheduled. We started about mid-May for those that have closure dates. You know, a few of them we keep open year round, but mid-May starting to open a few on the North Fork. We'll continue working. We kind of work east to west with the exception of Newton. That'll probably be our last one to open. And usually that's our last one to open because with the creek right there, it really concentrates grizzly bear activity while the fish are spawning. So we kind of delay the opening on that one to avoid some of the conflict there, but we'll get them all open. It's actually been pretty busy already this season. It's been impressive the amount of people that came Memorial Day weekend, and then again even last weekend. Usually we see a little more of a lull, but it seemed like those campgrounds that were open were used quite a bit. So, and then within the trails program this year, again, we were able to hire, we got 2 seasonals this year, which we had none last year. The plan for this year is to do 298 miles of maintenance on our backcountry trails. We're also able to tap into a number of different groups. Montana Conservation Corps, some of that operating budget, we go to pay them to do some of the work on the trails. We had a local Amish group approach us looking for volunteer projects, and so they're going to do some work. The MCC groups, we're going to get 2 groups. They're going to work on the Blackwater Trail, and then another group's going to work on Papoose, and then another MCC group is going to work on the Timber Creek Crandall Trail. Amish group, we're going to put them on a slide on the South Fork Trail. That's been a little bit of an issue for a few years, kind of a recurring issue for us. And then also the Amish group's going to do some work in conjunction with our trails folks on Eagle Creek. So, and then we'll have our staff working on various trails to hit that 298-mile mark throughout the course of this summer, barring any kind of knock on wood, weather events can sometimes kind of rearrange our priorities. So we'll see how it shakes out this summer. I'm crossing my fingers we don't get any deluges like we've had in years past that kind of rearrange our schedule. As far as timber sales, we have 2 active right now on the North Zone. Both of them happen to be on the Clarks Fork Ranger District. We have Dutch Charlie, that's WTL Logging is the contractor for that one, Leonard Davis out of Meeteetse. And then Tough Creek, Clean Sweep, I think he's kind of transitioning to Beartooth Forestry, Sean Egger. And then we'll have 2 more coming up. We have Mabel, that's going to be on the Graybull Ranger District. That should be about 1,600 CCF. And then 2, we're working with Wyoming State Forestry on a sale that we had previously sold, and then the operator went out of business and turned it back. So it'll be the Elkhorn sale on the Clarks Fork Ranger District, and we've had a fair amount of interest both from Sun Mountain Timber out of Montana. Actually, they're coming down. I think what they're doing is just getting kind of a sale or 2 from us from time to time to fill in a gap from what they don't get out of Montana to keep their production going, because it costs more for them to shut down and restart if they don't have enough wood to keep them going. So then two, I guess the other big project I'm sure you all have heard or seen as you travel up the North Fork was the Wapiti Restoration Project right there at the historic ranger station, Wapiti Campground, and then Big Game. We had a partnership with Wyoming Game and Fish with Trout Unlimited. Trout Unlimited was a huge player in this to do a bunch of stream restoration. In 22, when we had the major flooding, that same flooding that hit Yellowstone, that area got hammered pretty hard. We lost a good bit of pasture, lost a couple of sites out of the Big Game campground. So now actually we work with WTL logging. They brought a bunch of trees, kind of a big part of the bowl and then some of the root wad. And we've got those things augured into the bank, probably anywhere from 10 to 14 feet with a little bit of the root wad sticking out. That's been a technique that's been used on a number of areas across the West. And then we did it too down at the Wood River Campground with really good success. And some stream restoration has created some great habitat for fish. A lot of people told me not to tell anybody that, but down by Wood River, they've seen a lot of fish in the area. And
Casey,
then too,
a
it's been
question
pretty
on that
successful.
too, because I stopped and looked at it. I actually walked down the river and looked at it. And some of those trees that they put in the river, are they buried deep enough to where they're not going to become an issue downstream of coming out? Or, I mean, there were
Yeah.
some big old root systems that they planted in.
Yeah. And so what you're seeing sticking out with those roots is there's probably another 10 to 14
really?
feet of the tree buried into the. Yeah, I know there was a few folks in the public that were concerned because all you see is the root wad.
Right.
And so I think there was an assumption that that was just dropped there. Actually, I mean, there's quite a bit of those
Okay.
trees augured into, and then on top of that too, there's some boulders.
Right.
And then kind of the gravel or, some of the smaller material on top of that. So we feel like it should be pretty
Yeah,
secure.
that was my only concern is
Yeah.
they just, how deep they were when I was looking at it, if they would actually float down, but that makes sense.
Yeah, I think in combination with, how much is buried into the bank and then with those boulders on top of it, I mean, I'll never say never,
Right.
but I mean, it should be pretty secure.
Yeah. No, that ate up a lot of country.
Yeah,
And I hate to cater to the fishermen, but
yeah. Well, and it was kind of marching towards the highway too there
Oh,
in
yeah.
our east pasture at Wapiti. So there's some concern from WYDOT there. I think they should be pretty successful. Like I said, I'll never say never, but I think it should withstand some pretty
look
good
pretty
flows. Yeah.
yeah.
Those were kind of the major updates I had. And
Sure.
I guess if you
Then-
guys have any questions.
What's going on with Sleeping Giant?
So it would have been last Wednesday. They closed on the sale.
Oh, they did. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
The HMH Capital, Brent Hargrave, purchased, and we're working with them moving forward on, some of their proposed activity out there. There's been a little bit of back and forth. One of the things we had discussed with them when they first approached us is we want to keep it in character with the North Fork. We didn't want it to have any kind of a semblance of like an amusement park.
Right.
We're not looking at anything, bright lights, bells, whistles. It's going to be those things that are permitted, for ski areas. There's going to be some change. They're going to add some summer activity. That's one of the things. When it had gone up for sale, we'd been approached by a number of different prospective buyers, and consistently there was a theme of we don't think we can make it as a ski resort alone.
Mhm.
We're going to need to add something else to supplement the income. A lot of them wanted to add lodging out there. A lot of them wanted some uses that just weren't in keeping with, kind of that area of the North Fork. And yeah, I'm pretty upfront and said, no, we're not going to do that. There was some talk of, well, can we put things like bouncy houses? Can we put a huge chess set out there? I said, this is National Forest System land. This is the North Fork corridor. I understand your desire to make some additional revenue here to make this work, but we still want to keep, the character of the North Fork corridor. So there was a number of things that we just said, no, we're not going to entertain that even.
Do they make some kind of like a bear bouncy house? Would it be like entertainment,
Well, it's interesting you would say that is, in addition to the bouncy house, one of the the prospective buyers wanted to do this. It's called zorbing. And it sounds kind of crazy. I would encourage you to look it up. There's YouTube
called what?
videos. Zorbing. You put people in a huge ball
Oh,
and you
yeah.
roll them down the hill. And I was like, I just no or not. That's not.
Right when you hit the river, you can float.
Or I thought if they had a bison on at the very bottom, it could
Okay.
kind of give them the
Bounce
headbutt,
them back up.
kind of punt them into the river, or back up the hill for another ride.
Commissioner Oldfield?
Well, I appreciate you looking into those things, Casey. I know being involved in Sleeping Giant before it closed and the things that they asked to do. Of course, the zip line was one of the additions that they made that to help offset the winter expenses. And they're right, the ski area just can't pay the bills that it takes to run that and the rules that apply to ski areas and what they have to do. But the zip line's kind of the same way. There's some rules that have to apply and it has to be run the same way. But so will there be some like mountain biking type road stuff? I mean, I know they asked and
Yeah. Right
Okay.
now, there's some proposed mountain bike trails. I think
Okay.
the idea is that they would have the opportunity to ride the lift up and take the bike down,
Okay,
even some hiking.
okay,
One of the other things is a ropes course.
Okay.
That we work with them to design that. That's the other thing is, not only did we say the use has to be in keeping with the character, but also anything that they're going to add there, the design, the colors, things like that. We want to make sure it kind of blends with the natural landscape, that it's not something that's sticking out like a sore thumb.
That's kind of interesting because when Sleeping Giant wanted to do that, it was not allowed. So I don't know if any of the rules changed or just management changed, which is probably fine. I mean, looking at today's world versus 15 years ago might be a different thing, but
I think it's some of all the above. I know too, I think it was in 2016, Congress passed, I'm trying to think of the acronym for the act, but it essentially added some more of those uses, things such as a ropes course, or even, I know over in Jackson, I think it's one of the big resorts there added in, I think they call it a timber coaster. It's kind of one of those,
yeah.
it's on a rail and you ride it down.
Right.
Things like that.
They have the
or-
mountain biking too
Yeah.
on the lift. I know we've done that before. But
So I know
Okay.
in, the not too distant past, there's been some changes in some of the legislation around ski areas on national.
hope it works for
forest land.
them. We can get something going.
Yeah, I hope so too. And the other thing with the new owner too is we're really working hard and encouraging them to work with the community to make sure there are winter recreation opportunities out there, that it doesn't just totally depart from, a ski area.
Commissioner Gill?
Mr. Chairman, Casey, thanks for coming in. I mean, it's huge to put a face to each other once in a while and keep each other informed of where we're going. I received a newsletter recently, and you're aware. Could you elaborate a little bit on the Morrison Jeep Trail construction and switchback
Yeah.
revenue or reconstruction?
Yep. Actually, what we did was we partnered with Wyoming State Trails. We had a pretty big chunk of money and we just didn't have the staff to help facilitate a contract. And so Wyoming State Trails, knowing that, approached us, said, hey, we think we can help you out with that. So we entered in an agreement with them. They're going to do a good bit of the work out there. We'll contract a few things, some of the surveys that we have to get done out there in order to move forward. But we're going to do where the river, again, back in 22, that same event, the river essentially ate away a good portion of the road in a few areas. So we're going to move the road, get it up a little further away from the river to hopefully avoid that scenario again. But, and then to work on some of the switchbacks to improve them a little bit. I mean, there isn't a whole lot of room to work out there, as I know you're well aware of, but to improve them to the extent we can, to make it passable, I guess I'll call it again, to those that like to utilize that, we're not going to change, again, not going to change the character of that road. It's been pretty rugged. It's been a road that a lot of off-road enthusiasts have liked to use. We're not looking at upgrading it to the point where you could, take a Subaru out there. It's still going to be that same kind of character of a rugged road that you're going to have to probably use, UTV, ATV, I guess I'll never say never again, because who knows what people will do. But I mean, probably a fairly high clearance vehicle to access the area. They're actually out there right now. They've begun work. I think we're going to need to do a little blasting on the switchbacks to move some of the rock up there to get it passable. And so we have a blaster on the forest actually. So they're out there. I think they're reconning some of that right now, getting prepped to do that. They've got equipment, I believe, staged out there. So hopefully, knock on wood again, barring any unforeseen events, I think by the end of the summer, it should be usable.
I think, yeah, that's going to be right. I mean, it's a highly used recreational area, and technically it's been closed now for what, 3-4 years.
Yeah.
I know there's been uses going by it, but there is going to be some closure, if I understood right, during the weeks, Monday through Thursday, I believe it was, or
Yep.
Tuesday through Thursday. And then so for work
Yeah.
wise, and then so yeah, thank you, and I think it's much appreciated by a lot of people.
Yeah,
Long
more
time
than happy
coming.
to do it. I wish we could have got after it sooner and
It'll be open for hunting season
that, well,
If you draw
hopefully.
something.
if I draw something.
Oh,
So this weekend I had a conversation with a gentleman, about our wilderness study areas. And so I sent Casey an email last night, letting him, or a text message, letting him know that, some of the stuff has come up. The gentleman I talked to, over the weekend, and this has nothing with Forest Service really. He was on this working group for 3 years where they worked on these high lakes and McCullough Peak study area, which McCullough Peaks is on the BLM. And his complaint was nothing has been done. That's right. And it's probably not on the Forest Service level, but can you tell us anything about like the High Lake study area? I mean, his opinion was now with the administration we have would be the time to move forward and get this done. And I know under the, that was in 1984, under the BLM McCullough Peaks, it was 1979. It was supposed to be presented to the president by 1991, and the president had 2 years of work on it, and nothing has been done on that one either, which doesn't even fall in the under the Wilderness Act if you look at it. But I'm just curious if you had any kind of information on the High Lakes Wilderness Study and what's maybe not happening.
So interestingly enough, there is a group out of Jackson. The acronym is AMPLE. I think it's Advocates for Multiple Use on Public Lands. They are working on some potential legislation right now to include High Lakes and then a couple of wilderness study areas on the Bridger-Teton National Forest. So I know that group, what they're working on is having it released from a wilderness study area. And in the legislation they're potentially going to introduce, I don't know if they have a sponsor yet, if any of the senators or the Congress, they do. Okay. They want to transition it to what's called a national recreation area. And I think essentially from my understanding of looking at what they've drafted is for High Lake specifically, it would still be open for over snow use throughout the whole area. Snowmobiling would still be allowed there. And then I think the part that's in the research natural area crosses over with Line Creek natural area. That would be treated like the research natural area. And then the remainder of it, kind of the southern portion would be open for potentially summer, like mechanized use, mountain biking, things like that. From my understanding, they're not talking about any additional summer motorized use there. The other part of it too is that area is pretty rugged. I don't know. It's not really conducive to good summer motorized trails in that area.
The thing that's interesting is in 1984, they created almost 42 of these things in Wyoming. And, the administration, not Forest Service, but our delegation has not done anything with them. And like I say, the one in McCullough Peak was supposed to be settled in, so 1991 and 93, it should have been settled, and there's nothing ever happened out there on the BLM. And I just bumped into this guy, and that's why I sent you that. Seeing you were coming in, I thought I'd let you know that there's still that concern out there, and just, statewide, really.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, as you well know, because that was part of that 84 Wyoming Wilderness Act, any movement from what it is now takes congressional approval. It's not something we the Forest Service necessarily get to
Well,
decide on.
and the other concern was from this gentleman is, if you read that, it says that any, use, what do I want to say, any, established use and some of this, well, what's happened is on that northern side of the Beartooth Highway, these people have start really mountain biking that, trying to establish this established use, you know, and so that was the other concern is, and I've ridden snow machines and horses and mules all over up there, but now they're trying to establish mountain biking in that side to say that, hey, it's established or historical use.
Yeah, and I think the legislation reads to the manner and degree prior to enactment. So if I think they'd have to make an argument that there was that established use before 1984.
Yeah.
Mr. Teal?
Mr. Chair, I just, for openness, I guess, between us, we did actually sign a letter of support for that piece of legislation. Gal Jennifer Johnson in Washington DC has been working with that Teton group. And then we brought Bert Miller into the conversation for the snowmobile use in that backcountry. And I visited with Bert here just last week as well, and he's reviewed the draft. So yeah, hopefully something is going to get done real soon with that. The one thing that I was concerned with was the by removing it to allow mechanical use for cleaning the trails. Technically, you have allowed it, but you didn't have to. So this will clear up that. The big parting question is mountain bikes, not so much as e-bikes.
E-bikes.
Yeah, sorry, man, but that may be negotiated and changed in the bill, who knows, but yeah, it is moving forward from what I understand from Jennifer.
But Casey, isn't it my understanding that the Forest Service already has rules on wattage and of e-bikes and,
So by Forest Service rules, e-bikes are considered motorized. So if it's a non-motorized trail, by default, e-bikes are not allowed.
okay,
Now we can go through a process to allow them on non-motorized trails, and then there's different classes. There's the e-bikes where it's just kind of a little bit of an assist all the way up to where they actually have a throttle.
right.
And so, depending on if we were to construct a trail anywhere, we can go through and kind of assess, do we want e-bikes on the trail? If we do want e-bikes on the trail, which I think there's three classes.
Right, there are.
Which class do we want to allow on the trail? We're working with a group, that Henry's Mill area. It's Friends of Shoshone Trails. We already permitted them to groom cross-country skiing trails up there. Hopefully we can get some snow for them to groom, in future years, but now we're working through a process of potentially putting some mountain bike trails there too. And that's part of that discussion too, is do we want to allow e-bikes? And if we do, what e-bikes do we want to allow?
What if I claim ADA? Let me take my bike. You get older, No, I mean, I know like the BLM already has some, I think, rules on certain classifications on certain places you can have so many wattage and, they have these different classifications on them. And
Yeah,
because some of these, I mean, for instance, mine will go 45.
yeah, we're not allowing yours on
Oh.
the trail, Scott.
And I'll just keep riding my mule.
I think a lot of it has to do too with the design of the
Yeah.
trail. You definitely don't want on these trails where the sight distance isn't very good.
Sure.
Somebody, that has the capability of going 45 miles an
Right.
hour, come whipping around the corner and then you
Bump
end up
into
with a
some
wreck.
livestock or whatever.
Yeah.
Dossie?
I think that's our biggest concern with the horses all the time is what's coming. I mean, sometimes you can hear things and sometimes you don't. And
Yeah.
we deal enough with the grizzly bears and the hike
Llamas.
and the llamas. Yeah, a few things like that. Have a bike come flying around the corner is kind of entertaining. But yeah.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I want to thank Casey. I know it's not all you, but I mean, allowing the timber sales up, it looks so much better up in the upper Clarks Fork. that corridor through there, that you've cleaned up a lot of that. And this Dutch Charlie timber sale will even further that. I mean, it's really helped. And kudos to the Forest Service for actually managing the forest.
Well, thank you. Really appreciate that. And our plan is to continue moving up a little further, up the Chief Joe and then the Beartooth for our next project area.
Yep.
We're planning on probably, I would say, towards the end of next summer of 2027, being through another round of planning on, actually, we're looking at the whole forest, but we're going to do a pilot project in that area. If I were to guess right now, we're probably going to get maybe another 30,000 acres up in that area of activity, both, timber sales and then some other fuels treatments to, again, treat some of that area that everybody can see when you go up there has been hit by the bugs pretty good.
It's amazing how much forage comes up when you start doing those thinning type, as opposed to what was.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, Casey, has there been any thought given to some of this, this country? I'll use the North Fork, for instance, since I live there, but has there been any thought process to actually maybe doing some logging up in some of that more remote area? I know it's a little more pricey, but I know they did it like for cleaning, Sleeping Giant years ago, they did that. And it was very effective. And I just wonder if there's any thought about that.
We've talked about, and North Fork and even like on the switchbacks over Chief Joe, like in that Dead Indian Pass area, talked about potentially allowing heli logging. It's just the economics.
Sure.
It doesn't sound like, for what you have to spend, once you start turning the rotors, is the wood that would come off of there just wouldn't pay for it. There would have to be something more than likely to subsidize the operation.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, if somebody wanted to do it and, it's something we would consider. It's just, like I said, the economics of it, usually when you're doing that kind of
Well,
logging,
and quite
it's-
frankly, the only reason you did a Sleeping Giant is just clear up more trail and get it, I mean, it was the most, quickest way to get it done. And it was fast. Their turnaround time, but they weren't going very far. But Mr. Mango.
Yeah, Casey, do you have the fire mitigation? Do you have a map? Is it an always moving map where it might be a high spark area here, a high spark area over here? How often do you update or look into what might be a potential problem this summer?
So we've gone through a broader analysis. I'm trying to think of how many years ago that was, to look at the forest as a whole and kind of designate some areas. There's also been others, through the state. The governor had designated wildland urban interface areas, or emergency areas, maybe for lack of a better term, a few years ago. So kind of taking that all into consideration as to where we are. We also, the Forest Service employs entomologists, bug people, to look at the way the bugs are moving. We get an annual report from them and kind of look at where the bugs are going, to try and use that as some idea of where we'd like to go. We focus a lot on, again, those wildland urban interface areas. Where is there potential for us to set up some treatments that in the event of a wildland fire, that we would provide some additional, or maybe some better chance of success at protecting structures. You mentioned that Chief Joe area, a lot of that work was done because of where it was in proximity to Crandall. We've done a lot of work up the North Fork because of the resorts and lodges there. So I'm not sure if I totally answered your question.
And do you keep up, if something happens up there, do you have a coordinated plan on working with local resources, like maybe the county, Homeland Security and all of that, and a plan? And would it start through the Forest Service?
Yeah, we work, we're the federal government, so we like our acronyms. So I think it was 3 years ago, we worked on their potential operational delineations, pods. In that, we engaged Park County Fire extensively on determining some of these areas. you know, again, where's our best chance of success if a wildfire breaks out to set up not only treatments, but then looking at potential containment areas, things like that. So, I think I'm answering your question. If not, just let me know. We're working, yeah, with state forestry, Park County Fire, worked with Sam and Jerry quite a bit on those projects.
And I can tell you, 31 years in law enforcement, one of the most impressive things I've ever seen is how the Forest Service can mobilize a fire in demo. I've seen it where you go by and there's 2 or 3 tents, and then the next day there's 350 people in an air tanker base, and then when they demob, it's gone almost the next day, and then all of a sudden here comes the cedars and everything to reclaim the land that they've used, and it's a great example. I mean, of how quick these guys can get on it, and they bring in them TAC teams, and it might be small, and the next day it's huge. It's just it's.
Do they use federal funds or would that be through state funds?
I would
With
both.
Depending on
Yeah.
the ownership pattern, it can be both. You know, with a lot of this being federal land, you know, probably the lion's share of it is federal funds. Once we start getting into point protection on structures, then the state will start kicking in some money through the county oftentimes.
And the other thing that's it's always amazing is how well they keep people informed. They would have meetings at 7 a.m., 7 p.m., and especially like on the North Fork on that gun barrel fire, they had a lot of public meetings twice a day and keep everybody informed. They would fly at night and then have a map there to show their hot spot, the ring around the fire, and it's amazing.
Sort of like having Hell's Angels.
Well, no,
Daily
we weren't
meeting.
that good at it.
Daily meetings.
Good.
Mr. Chair, Casey, are we any closer moving at all with, 10 years ago, we started a travel management plan for service. Is that still stalled with administration changes?
It is, and actually it's changed up. The administration rescinded the travel management rule. So now we're waiting to see what the new one's going to be like. And so travel management for the Shoshone has pretty much been shelved for the time being.
So if it were to move again at all, would we start over?
I don't know if we'd start over, or if we'd pick up where we left off, but I think there would be, I think there would there would have to be some re-engagement with the public to say, this is where we had been, here's some changes, in the travel management rule and where the administration has directed us to go with this to, again, get the public engaged again.
Public input could be a lot different than it was 10 years ago. I know that local government would change to some extent. But I just, I know that was a big thing for 2 or 3 years in a row, and then it just kind of stalled, and it would kind of started, then it stalled, and
Yeah, we've had some staff
like a land use
movement.
plan. Hey,
And so, having someone consistently to carry it forward has been part of the challenge for us as we've had people move on. It's been a little bit of a challenge to fill positions.
nothing immediate as far as of that's gonna kick
No.
on or fast track it or table it or, okay. Thank you.
Anything else for Casey? Well, Casey, I just want to say one thing is all my years of dealing with the Forest Service here. I think that the relationship and even talking with my brother, the sheriff, and since you've been here has been awesome. And not that it was bad. There was some there were some troubling times, but I think the relationship is good, and I appreciate what you're doing, and think that the force is heading in the right direction. Don't agree with everything, but I don't agree with everything with anybody. But thank you again. I mean,
Yes,
so
thank you.
much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and likewise, it has been great working with all of you, both when you were in sheriff and now county commissioner, and working with all of you as county commissioners.
Yeah.
It's been great, and by all means,
And I think
please
the
get a hold of
updates
me.
are great,
There's-
and just coming in and meeting every now and then is great.
Yeah, Well, one of these days we'll have to drag you guys out in the woods and, get you to see some of what we're actually doing.
The project on the river was amazing. We did stop and look at that to kind of see what happens when you're.
I did park in front of the sign that says don't block the gate though. Just I didn't want to walk too far.
Yeah.
That's all right. It was
It was on a Saturday, nobody was working, so I figured
Yeah.
for 15 minutes, I'm good.
Yeah, you're probably fine. The contractor working up the North Fork parked in front of one of our campgrounds over the weekend, and then interestingly enough, one of them had to use the bathroom in the campground, and so they drove the steamroller
Oh.
down to the campground to the bathroom. So
Yeah.
it's not just you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Casey.
thanks, Casey. Thanks for coming in. Anything else, anybody?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Chair.
Been moved and second to adjourn. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
All right,
Any opposed?
you opposed?
Did you vote, comrade?